Welcome back for another episode of Fisticuff Central, and today it's quite a short one. We're only going to cover one fight. It's not a very lackluster UFC fight night. We've got Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivac, which is going to be at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. So let's get to it. It's number 8 versus number 9 in the heavyweight division. Should be a fun fight, hopefully. Like I say, not a lot of fans are too hyped about this card. There's not much on it. It's definitely one of the deadest UFC fight nights of the year, if we're just being completely honest about it. So let's get into the fight. Now, obviously, again, I'm a homer. I've got a bit of a bias with Marcin Tybura, but I'm going to try to do a fair analysis. So, Marcin Tybura, well-rounded guy, got a couple of losses. He lost quite brutally to Tom Aspinall, but apart from that, his last 10 fights, he's done quite well. Went on quite a good win streak, then lost a close decision to Alexander Volkov at UFC 267, I believe. Before that, going on 5 or 6 wins. Then after that, amassing another couple of wins and then losing to Tom Aspinall, and since then beating Tybura in quite spectacular fashion. Now, to be honest, Marcin's kind of gone under the radar because he's not really excellent in any aspect of MMA. He's kind of a well-rounded fighter. He's had some decent knockouts, but typically the more power strikes have come from his legs. He had a brutal knockout high kick some years back, but his hands don't seem to be too powerful. In his last outing against Tybura, he took a few big shots from Ty, was able to weather the storm, take him down and completely dominate him until the referee called the fight. That's one thing that Marcin does have, is durability. Against Romanov, he was able to weather the storm, and then in the second and third round really putting on him, having good conditioning on top of that. I do think that one was Salt Lake City, so that does make a difference in terms of cardio, and that really shows Marcin's strength also, because he was able to carry on his conditioning to the second and third round. I think Marcin's solid. He doesn't really have any weaknesses. I wouldn't class him as elite anywhere. That's the only downside. I think he's got good ground and pound. He's got decent boxing, decent head movement, and a good kicking game. Sergey Spivac, very much of the same, really. He's gone on some win streaks. He is the much younger fighter, at 29 years of age, compared to Marcin Tybura, who's 38. They have actually fought once before, which maybe I should have mentioned, and Tybura won that fight, so this is the second within the series. This was about 6 or 7 years ago, so I think it was 2017, 2018. Spivac was a lot younger, around 22 years of age, I want to say, so he was still quite immature MMA fighter. He's developed since then, he's gone, but so is Marcin, right? But with Spivac, right, so he's had quite a similar story. Gone on decent win streaks, then lost a fight here and there, lost in quite brutal fashion to Cyril Gane, like Marcin Tybura lost in quite brutal fashion to Tom Aspinall around the same time, only a few months separated those losses. The difference being that Sergey Spivac has not come back and fought since then, unlike Marcin, who came back and fought against Ty. So he's not fought since last September. It's not that significant. Quite often you see fighters not fight for a year, so I don't think inactivity is going to be that much of an issue. He's quite a young guy as well. I'm sure he's kept himself rather active throughout, at least this year. He's a well-rounded fighter, just like Marcin. He's good everywhere, not excellent in any domain. This makes for quite an interesting fight, and I genuinely don't really know to favour. I think being the younger fighter, potentially maybe a bit hungrier, I don't know. Don't always work out that way. Some would favour Spivac. Maybe he's more up and coming, but I'm still going to have to go with my boy Marcin. He's a fellow Polish countryman, and I do actually think that his ground and pound is a little bit better. I think his conditioning is probably a little bit better, but he's also aging, so is he able to maintain that? Is he sustaining his current skill set, or is he still developing it? Because I don't feel like I've seen major advancements in the last few years from Marcin. I feel like Sergey has got a little bit better, you know. So is that trajectory still going up for Sergey? And are we going to see an even better and improved version? He's taking some time off. He lost quite brutally to Cyril Gane as he potentially tried to reinvigorate and reinvent himself. We've seen this before with the likes of Brian Ortega coming back, a better version of himself after the brutal loss to Max Holloway. So sometimes fighters, after taking a big L, they do come back and they look better. So it's going to be an interesting fight in that sense. And I don't, not to sound awful, I don't really see either of these really winning a title or making a significant title push. You never know. I do think if either of them was to get a title shot, it would most likely be Spivac. He's still young. He could evolve into a phenomenal athlete. You never know. The likes of Charles Oliveira, Michael Bisping, there's been fighters that have been kind of like in that journeyman status and rose to prominence and have become elite fighters. Maybe more so Charles Oliveira into that elite category. Not disrespecting Michael Bisping, phenomenal, but I think the way that Oliveira has maintained that top level, definitely is a category above. So yeah, if anyone's gonna have a more successful run, it's definitely going to be Spivac. But in this moment, I don't think Marcin's is past it. He showed against Tybura. He's still he's got a lot of toughness and durability. This is only a few months back, so hopefully he's been able to maintain that, and hopefully he can get the finish. I don't really see a clean knockout. I think that's quite unlikely. If Marcin is going to win, it's most likely going to be by TKO, potentially a submission. Like ground and pound, similar to Ty, kind of weather the storm and wear Sergey out. That's the path to victory for Marcin Tybura. Maybe, a bit of work up against the fence. These are two big fellas. There's a lot of weight going into the clinch work, and, it could really wear, an individual out, especially with the the bigger guys, as they don't really have the same type of gas tank. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today. It's not a right long one. We've got a great episode coming up next week. Obviously, in the meantime, we'll do the breakdown, but we've got UFC Perth, some great fights on there. So that'll be a nice long episode, and we'll cover a bunch of fights on that one. And I'm really looking forward to that fight, some phenomenal fights on that card, but we're not going to get too much into that because I'm going to save all the juicy stuff for the following week. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Peace out.